The point where we were the previous year compared to now, not even close. I've never seen a group make a bigger jump than what the Boise Gems just did. The production of Estro Perpetua was great, but it definitely had one word tying it together: safe. Melodies weren't too wild, moves were impossible, and the length of 6.5 minutes made for a great first show. But now, this time it's different. Let me start from the beginning. We just finished the last show of 2023 in Salt Lake City, Utah. The world finally knew who the Gems were. Everyone saw that we had potential and were waiting for our next show. The rest of the design team at the Gems and I didn't settle on an idea for a very long time. It was a roulette of ideas, some coming to life in forms of sketches and others never even leaving the chat. I got to work on 2 prototypes of shows that were eventually scrapped. There are still ones we'd like to do in the future, so I won't disclose on what the ideas were. Eventually, we decided we wanted to lean into Idaho a bit more, as we did the previous year. Estro Perpetua is the motto of Idaho, so why not delve into more history about Idaho? That's when we eventually stumbled across the legend of the Ghost Stallion. Legend has it, when a traveler is lost in the Hawaii mountains, a ghost stallion will come along the way to help the traveler reach safety. We had it. The idea clicked, and we knew the direction we needed to go. Although we had the idea, we now needed the music, drill, uniforms, and other show design elements. For music, we first laid out a map, introducing the story, telling the story of the harsh elements, the stallion's arrival, and finally, salvation for our protagonist. Okay, so now we had to decide what music we want to use to convey the story. Almost instantly, we decided Rite of Spring for the harsh elements. The piece is perfect, with its discordant sounds, skewed rhythms, and dark material. For the first movement, it took a long time to entirely get that sorted, stumbling across multiple ideas until we settled on looking at Ennio Morricone's music. We didn't have any funding to pay for the rights, so we'd have to create new music that resembles what Morricone wrote. The intro was starting to be finalized, as being an intimate experience where the listener is by a campfire, being told the legend of the Ghost Stallion, when the scene changes to what the protagonist of the story went through. When writing the first movement, I went for a very open and spooky vibe, using quartal and quintal harmony to stage the story. A trombone solo, very similar to the Fistful of Dollars theme, sets off the motion. Battery gets to work, low brass joins in, and we are sucked into the world of the Ghost Stallion. The first impact is undoubtedly one of the most important parts of any marching arts show. It's meant to wake the audience up and evoke some sort of primal excitement in us. The music for it, of course, being the Rite of Spring, but changed up a ton. You see, arrangements live on a spectrum, the spectrum being close to the original material and nowhere near the original material. This section I'd say is pretty far from the original. You get some sense of Rite of Spring, but it quickly pulls away from it. After I wrote the draft of the opener, some edits were made by Cooper Phillips, a brass arranger for the Gems as well, and I took those edits and tweaked a few more things, birthing a draft of the first movement that would stay until after our community show. When making the tweaks, I took a descending baritone line and turned it into something that would end up being a major motif for the show. I also added 1/4 bar, thinking it would go hard, and it did go hard. The opener was ready, so now it was time for the second movement. The story of the second part is pretty straightforward. The protagonist has to deal with the harsh elements of nature. Whether it's wildlife, weather, or terrain, our character must endure it. The movement, when originally written, was an absolute beast. It spanned over 3 minutes long and had several very difficult segments. The movement opens with the stabs from the Rite of Spring, switch from its original Lydian to a Dorian sound, making it darker and fierce. The main theme of the movement is then passed around for an extremely long time, going through variations that change in harmonic and rhythmic content. It's jagged, off-putting, and extremely effective at telling the story of danger. The next segment took forever to finally get nailed down. It's a statement once again from the Rite of Spring, moving into a large, impactful moment, setting up the most chaotic section of the movement, bringing it to an end. That's what we had after several edits. I kid you not, what we originally had almost made the show over 11 minutes long. We had a section from the final part of the Rite of Spring that would have been insanely difficult to pull off, lots of hopping between sections and many difficult jumps, and it made the whole section a major challenge. Also, it would have made the section just too long. We scrapped the last Rite of Spring part, shortened some other elements, and ended up with something shorter while still bringing the same impactful moment. There's a trombone solo inside this section that would get reworked over and over, and eventually I gave it a jazzy spice while still remaining based around the Rite of Spring. What we got was an overall massive chaotic movement that did a great job in portraying stress. It was now on to the third movement, the final moment of despair, but also the moment of light when the ghost stallion arrives. The opening is meant to resemble the trio from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where minor ninth arpeggios are played along with the guitar solo. The solo introduces us to a new motif and recalls the first motif from Movement 1. This section is meant to be powerful, moving, and also conjuring ideas of vast deserts and desolation. The low brass then enters with some somber chords that are actually a variation of Esto Perpetua's opening chords. The light somewhat shines in with the mellophones coming in, everything culminating on a trumpet soloist. Eventually, we had this whole section be the trumpet soloist falling down, being in despair, and ultimate defeat, until he finally gets up, singing his song of death. It's a solo very reminiscent of the Fistful of Dollars showdown music. Once the solo is over, the rest of the ensemble swells in, doing a fake-out impact, only to finally reach the most important moment of the whole show. You see, every show strives to have at least one moment of glory, the moment that gets the hair standing up on your neck. There's no perfect formula to reach that moment. It's something that has to be discovered through writing with divine levels of inspiration, but we had that moment in our show. It was right here. The trumpet duet screaming, the backgrounds, the beat laid down by the drumline coalesced into something we didn't expect to be this powerful. I would feel shivers go down my spine when we finally nailed down this moment. It all ends with a uniform change, exposing the white cloth under the black silk ponchos. A horn solo plays, based around the melody of A Story of a Soldier, but definitely far enough away that we could never be dinged by copyright. The solo takes us right into the final movement, where the brass are playing deep and rich extended harmonies with the solo continuing over top. Then the solo goes absolute ham, and the person playing it was doing an incredible job with it. The final movement took a lot of design to get down as well. We decided to use the music from Mahler 5, just like Phantom Regiment, as well as use the music from Symphonie Fantastique. I originally thought it would be fun to use Dreams of a Witch's Sabbath, the final movement of the symphony, but it ended up being way too dark for this section. So, on another listen to the whole Symphonie Fantastique, I realized Movement 4, March to the Scaffold, would have been a much better option, mainly because the motif in there is actually a major version of the motif that we had earlier in the show. It fit perfectly. It also mixes with Mahler 5 very well. We of course had to add in a classic company front with the Mahler 5 blaring throughout the ensemble, ending in what people would think to be the end of the show. But no, we slam on the gas pedal, turning up the tempo and run through original music that combines all the themes from the show in a bright major tone. Then finally we end in a massive arc with a massive major chords, 2 steps, and then 2 bars of the final chord. The show is over. Now, of course, that's just the show. The season had many more stories and fun side quests throughout, such as our core song. I love hymns. Even in phases of my life where I wasn't religious, I would listen to them. They're certified bangers, and you can't tell me otherwise. Like Near My God to Thee, the last piece allegedly played on the Titanic, it's iconic. It's a very simple melody with a very simple chord structure, but can be arranged into many things. I often use that tune as a base when showing off different methods of harmonization and other arranging techniques. I originally wanted to use that tune for the core song, but I didn't get much of a say in that. Funny enough, I told the director, Austin, I'd love Near My God to Thee to be our core song, and then later when talking about it, he accidentally confused it with Be Thou My Vision, another banger tune. I'm not sure if it was some sort of transcendental time warp Freudian slip, but Be Thou My Vision needs to stay in your mind as I tell this story. It's the fall of 2023. Camps are getting ready to start, and we want to play a fun tune. I was asked to put together a Super Trooper just for fun. It wasn't going to be performed, and I don't think there's any evidence of recordings or anything playing of us, but definitely not a core song worthy piece, but it could evolve into a fun piece, just like Blue Knights have their Eyes or Colombians have their Happy. Spring training is coming up, and there's still arranging work to be done. We wanted to play a song for our community performance that would be a very Gems-esque and very Idaho-esque piece. So our brass caption head, Steven, suggested, Here We Have Idaho. I listened to it and was taken over by a demon of inspiration and wrote a show-worthy ballad version of Here We Have Idaho that is way too much to be played outside of show context. So I made a different version that's a little bit more reined in, but still beautiful. We thought this would become our core song. I was also asked to make an arrangement as a thank you note to the people who donated our trailer and also worked on the uniforms for us. It's an arrangement of their 2 favorite hymns, Amazing Grace and Be Thou My Vision. I titled the arrangement With All Thanks, knowing it would be a thank you letter. During spring training, we didn't have much time as the second movement was more of a beast than originally thought, ending up taking several days of rehearsal to learn it. It meant that we could only play one of the 2 tunes I arranged for our community performance. Being thankful was what we thought to be more important, so we played With All Thanks. That arrangement was one we'd often come back to during warm-ups and also to end rehearsals. When we were gathered in the sanctuary of one of our housing sites, the brass was in an arc and everyone else sat down to listen. With All Thanks ended up being our core song. Again, I'm not sure if Austin saw the future or what, but it's still crazy that he mentioned by accident Be Thou My Vision as being the core song. The last rehearsal we had in this little town of Boise, everyone gathered together as the brass was arced up. Our director said, introducing our core song. Tears were shed, people were smiling. It was a very emotional moment overall, and it solidified our identity even more. The Gems are always thankful for everything they've been given. The amount that goes behind the scenes is wild, and I'm very happy for all that was done for us. As I'm writing this script, it's only been 2 days since our last performance. The Pacific Northwest tour was extremely hot, as you may know, and the heat is still persisting. It's currently 85 degrees outside. and it's also 10:30 p.m. Every performance that we had was pushed back an hour. Instead of starting at 7, we started at 8. My biggest concern was that a student would get heat sickness. The Columbians had a very unfortunate incident with their first show. One of their buses had a broken AC, so the students were cooking inside the bus. Sadly, they had to cancel their first show. Although being a staff member meant we had to look out for our student safety, it also meant that we got to see them grow as musicians. One of the most rewarding feelings I got to witness was seeing some members who struggled at earlier camps become extremely strong players and marchers. I can recall countless times that the group would get hair standing up from my neck from how good they played. I wasn't able to arrive until the end of the first week of spring training. That first day I got to see a full run of the second movement, the part that I was worried about the most. When the run started, all that went through my head was fear of something going very bad. But once the count-off was finished and the marchers were moving, I got to let that go and enjoy what I saw. The energy I got from the students in this movement was amazing. I could see them all enjoying the music, enjoying the drill, and doing what they could do to perform. It's a tough chunk of music and a tough chunk of drill as well. Everything is discordant to where one must act the part to pull it off, or else it looks hokey. I definitely got that feeling from these students that they pulled it off very well. My goal was to make this video extremely long, but in the end I found myself rewriting the script several times because I would just keep repeating myself. I'm happy for the experience I got to work with these amazing educators and creating this production. Everyone was a joy to be around, and I'm very excited for what we have next year. Thank you. Hey there, it's Chris Price. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Like the video if you liked it. Share it with a friend. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you.